So thank you everybody for joining Tech Tuesday. Today is March 30th, 2021. We're about to get into April. So that's exciting. So today is a really specific meeting. I want to show you guys something I'm really proud of. Pat myself on the back here. It's a spreadsheet, but I'm calling it a calculator because that's to me a sexier word than spreadsheet. It's a great way to explain to clients how a 22AD works. So let's just really quick start by opening up 22AD. We'll start at the very beginning, a very good place to start. It's a good thing I find myself funny.
Well, that sounded like a Mary Poppins song, so I was like totally laughing with you. It sounds like a very good place.
Same actress, different movie. It's Sound of Music.
Oh yes.
Yeah. Come on, Christy, keep up. Okay, so let's talk about the Form 22AD, which we've talked about many times, so we're going to be very quick going through this. So the 22AD is saying, hey, I will, as a buyer, pay X amount above the appraised value if I need to get this home closed. Okay, so what that means is you offer $800,000 on a home and it appraises at $800,000, you're good. You don't have to pay any extra. It's kind of like an escalation clause in the sense that it's saying, I will pay more if I have to, right? But you don't have to unless you have to. That is a backwards way of saying it, but you get my point. So the form is really simple how to fill it out. You click that box and you say 50,000 or whatever the number is. And then the buyer still has to give notice of low appraisal within 3 days. And the seller can terminate within 3 days. What that means is if the appraisal comes in less than, so we're pending at 800,000. And if the appraisal comes in at 750 or above, you're good. You're already locked in at paying the extra 50,000. But if it comes in less than 750, there's still a negotiation process, right? Because oh, I just got a weird notice from Zoom. Everyone can still hear me? Yep. Okay, perfect. If it comes in less than 750, there's still a negotiation process, right? It comes in at 740. Well, sure, we'll pay the extra 50 still, but now there's still a $10,000 gap. And that's what this is referring to, because then that's still another round of negotiation. So let's just leave the 22AD at that and just say there's a lot of information here. If you have questions about this, let me know. But this is, that's basically how that form works. Okay, so this is a spreadsheet I put together. Do me a favor and forget column D and E, the formula 2 and 3, okay? Just ignore those right now. So going back to that first example, we're pending at 800, and let's say the appraisal hits 800. Well, everything stays the same, right? They're putting 5% down, so that's $40,000. So their loan amount is $760. Their closing cost is $2.25. I added this column in case, sometimes an agent will say, I'll, pay part of your closing costs or whatever. You can factor that in if you want to get really exact. So hypothetically, if you said, I'm going to give 0.5, would that, nope, that's not what I meant. 0.05, nope, that's not it either. So that would be of the total. Anyways, you can do this however you want to do this. But if you wanted to give them, give your clients some money, you could put it here, negative, or this would be a plus $5,000 because I'm giving my clients $5,000, right? I'm not telling anyone to do that, but that's what that column's for. I just want to explain that really quick.
Why would you give your clients closing money?
In this case, it is simply because I am related to the clients who I made the spreadsheet for, and I was giving them, they out of nowhere told me, you know what, the home we bought 2 years ago, we want to sell, and we want to buy another one. They're really high properties and they're family, literally family, not just friends. And so I was going to, those are 2 commissions I wasn't expecting. This is complicated because it's like, I'm never encouraging people to give up their commissions, but there are times where it's like, okay, that's a $650,000 commission, $800,000 commission that I absolutely wasn't expecting. We're talking about almost $1.5 million in sales. Like, I'm going to give them a deal. Not that I have to, but because it was a gift. So anyways, that's
such a caring heart.
What was that?
Just such a caring heart you do.
Exactly. I'm just such a good person.
It's so tender.
I know. It's amazing. My back is going to be so bruised by the end of this one from patting myself so hard. Anyways, okay. So we have closing costs at 2.25. That's talk to your lender and try and get as close to exact as possible. A lot of lenders will just give you the lazy answer and say 3%. It's almost never 3%. So don't just, talk to them and say, no, what are the actual closing costs going to be? I have an interest rate of 3.11. The loan term is 30 years. The cool thing is I have adjacent spreadsheets that you don't have to touch, but these are mortgage calculators. So what it will do is it will automatically spit out your mortgage payment, which is super cool. So the way this spreadsheet works, you literally just have to put in the purchase price and all in the information, but then the principal and interest will be calculated for you. Okay, so we have principal and interest at 3247.39. PMI is incorrect there. That should be 0. Whoops. Does that look about right to you, Craig?
Yeah.
That's probably pretty close. It's about, so how PMI is calculated, guys, is it's the total. This is a formula, so you don't have to do this math. It does the math for you. See how that works? But it's a total of the loan amount multiplied by this percentage divided by 12 months in a year equals this much per month.
And like on this, you guys don't need to be 100% accurate. This is to give a good picture. Okay. Because different companies are going to have different rates. If you go with Gentworth or MGIC, like there's going to be different rates. So this is just, here's a general idea for you.
Yeah, so this spreadsheet you can totally customize for a specific situation, but I'm doing this with a very generic situation. Then when we're done with me showing this example, I'm going to ask somebody to give me an example of their own and we'll put in their real numbers. Okay, so now we got principal and interest, their PMI, their property taxes. You can put in their exact property taxes. Let's say their exact taxes are $7,000 per year, and you'll see. Did that calculate? It didn't look like it did. Oh yeah, it did. Okay, cool. So you put in the property taxes and it calculates for you what their monthly property taxes are, and then insurance at $900 at $75 a month. Okay, so then it spits out, here's their total monthly payment. In this case, they're getting rental income. They're planning on renting out an ADU in the backyard, in the garage. So minus that, so this would be their payment. Okay, so that's obvious, right? That's how we wrote our offer. That's if the appraisal comes in at value. But then they're always asking you, well, what happens if the appraisal comes in a little low? Okay, so now let's say the appraisal comes in at 775. Okay, so now we're in section 2. Okay, so we still are pending at 800. The appraisal comes in at 775. So now their 5% down payment, it's 5% of their new loan amount. Okay, so the loan amount is going to be, of their new purchase price. So 775 is the new, it's of their loan amount. So it's now 5% of this 736,250, right? Because the loan amount is $25,000 less. So now their down payment is only $38,750. So that went down at $1,250, but they're coming in with an extra $25,000 out of pocket because of the low appraisal. They still have the 2.25 in closing costs. So now their total out of pocket is $81,750, but everything else goes down a little bit too. Their PMI is a little less, their principal and interest is a little less, and their total payment goes down by about $120. So the point that you want to get across to your clients is the only thing that's changing is you are paying more out of pocket and you're financing less. So your payment goes down and your out of pocket goes up. So instead of paying 58, you're going to pay 81, but your payment's going to be 150 less or 120 less per month for 30 years. Okay, which is that's not that much less considering that you're only dropping since you're putting in 23,000 more. But when you explain it this way, they can get it a little better. And then using formula 3, the worst case, right? The purchase price is still 800, but the appraised value is 750. So now their down payment is only 37.5. Their additional down payment is 50,000. So their loan amount is 712. So going back to our original example over here, instead of owing 760, they'll only owe 712 from day one, which is a good thing, right? They have way more equity in the home. And I'm going to talk about equity in just a second because that can be confusing. So they still have the same closing costs, everything else goes down, but their payment's less, their PMI is less. So really, if you end up with this worst case, your payment is actually doing super quick math, $180 less per month for 30 years. So essentially, if you're my client, I'm explaining, yes, you'd be paying more out of pocket. Don't offer this unless you have this out of pocket to pay. But for the next 30 years, this is all you're going to be paying as opposed to this. Just makes it way easier to explain. Now, here's the cool part. This is the part that's not in the spreadsheet that's really important to explain to people. They say, wait, but I'm paying more than the home is worth. Well, you're paying more than the home is worth when it was appraised. But guess what? When the value changes? The second it closes. Because what dictates what a home is worth? A home is worth what the comps say it's worth, right? So if your home sells, if this home that you're buying sells for 800, that just changed the market. That is now saying that, using the example of the home I was showing you earlier, a 4-bed, 3-bathroom, 3,000 square foot home, 1-story with a basement with a 2-car garage, blah, 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 is now worth 800,000, period. And we know that because it just sold for 800,000, right? So it's like you become a cash buyer almost. That's what you're doing. When a cash buyer buys a home versus a finance buyer, regardless, it's still a comp at the end of the day. And so now all the homes around you, if they're looking at, well, what are we going to price our home for? And they have a similar home, they're looking, well, this one sold for 800. So that's what the market will bear. And that's what homes are worth. Does that make sense? It's really complicated. I'm not trying to say this like it's, I'm not trying to say this like this is super simple and easy and you should get it right off the first bat, but you really want to practice explaining this to people because it's so complicated. But it's true that what I'm saying here is really, these are straight facts. They're not, this isn't opinions. Craig, do you want to add to that at all?
Yeah, it's just really important to get the fact into everyone's head that real estate is always in the rears. It always is. It is always playing catch up in our market. So what the comps were last week, guess what? There's new comps this week. Like, that's just the way it goes. The home is worth whatever you pay for it. So no one is actually ever overpaying for a home because that becomes the home's value. And we're also, a lot of people are saying, oh, but this is what happened back in 05, 06 and led to 07, 08. No, what happened in 07, 08 was we had a 10 to 12 month supply of homes. We have less than a month of supply right now. This is not a bubble. This is what the home is worth. And it's going to just go up and up and up. So it's really important to explain that to them. You're not overpaying for a home. This is what you're agreeing to pay for the home. And that is what it's going to be worth. Okay.
Exactly. Now there's another formula we could show them too. So formula 3 in this example is the worst case, right? Well, again, worst in air quotes, best case for your monthly payment, but worst for your out of pocket, 105,000. Again, just like an escalation, you don't offer any higher on the escalation than you are willing to pay / you are qualified for. Same with the 22AD. You don't offer this offer unless you're good paying 105.5, right? If you can't pay that, then don't offer it, right? But there's another situation that's possible. I'm going to go over to formula 2. Okay, let's say the appraisal comes in at 730. Now we're a week from closing. The seller can say, well, I'm going to go back on market. But why would they go back on market? Don't they want to close in 1 week and just drop the price? It's risky. They don't have to, but most of the time they will. Okay, so now they're at 730 here, okay? That means we have to drop this price to 780 because that's 50,000 more. So now our down payment is all the way down at 36.5 plus 50,000. So now our loan amount is only 693,500. Our total out of pocket is still really similar to this, 104.50 as opposed to 105.50. And our payment goes all the way down to 3,055. So it's really, we can't predict the future, right? I don't know what's going to happen. But we've got this as a potential good case scenario where we don't pay any more out of pocket, but you have a higher payment. You have this as a potential worst case scenario, depending on how you want to look at it. And then you have this as a potential really good situation where you actually get the home for 730. You only finance 693. Sure, you pay 104 out of pocket, but your payment's way less and you got the home for less. So there's all these different scenarios. Again, I've said it multiple times. I'm going to say it one more time. Don't offer any more on 22AD than you as a buyer are comfortable doing. But if you can, if you've got, 150 in the bank and you can do this, why not? It's a no-brainer. It's just like if you're going to refinance a home, a lot of people are going to refinance their home in COVID hit and they were doing 80% loan to value refinances on cash out refis, and then it changed. They said, nope, we're only doing 75% loan to value cash out refis. Well, you can sit back on your couch and go, oh, well, that sucks. Now I'm not doing it. Well, all it means is you're leaving a little more money in your home. It's not saying you have less equity. It's really in reverse. That's what we're talking about. So now from day one, you're going to have more equity in your home. You're just paying more of it up front. Does that make sense? I know this is really complicated. Feel free to throw any questions you guys have. It's probably going to be a quick meeting, but it's just a really, really important formula to understand. And I'm going to share the spreadsheet with people. You just have to, whenever you use it, say, disclosure, this was made by Isaac, who's awesome. That's it. That's all I ask in return.
Isaac.
Yes.
It's easier to ask you questions if you check the chat or take a breath sometimes.
Okay, so chat box. Where's the chat box?
If you go to the bottom of the screen where it says chat.
It's different when I'm sharing my screen. Okay, is there a tipping point where you think there's a minimum down and the rest should be AD? Oh, that's so great. Thank you so much for asking that. Okay, God, I wanted to talk about this and I totally would have forgot if you hadn't asked. Robin, bonus points. Well done. Okay, this is the main reason I wanted Craig here for this. And Craig, I know you got to step away in a second. So
no, I'm good. I got it taken care of. So.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, so glad you said that. Okay, so a lot of people, they have, let's say 15% down, okay? No, what did I do? Okay, there we go. They have 15% down on a home. Okay, the difference between a 15% down payment and a 5% down payment for their interest rate and their PMI and so on is minuscule. I'm gonna have Craig talk about that. So let's flip this around for just a second here. If we put 15% down, which then allows for nothing on the 22 AD, right? Because we're assuming they have, well, actually, so let's say they have 12% down using our earlier example. So they're putting 12% down. Nope, let's go to 10% down. I'm trying to match our earlier number. Yeah, so that's close to it. So they put 10% down to a seller, a 10% down conventional buyer who has no 22 AD, even though they're putting around the same amount down as somebody who offers 5% down with a 50,000 22 AD, to a seller, it's way less attractive, right? Because in this case, they can, they're still putting the same amount down, but they can't pay above if the appraisal goes low, right? So it's a great question, Robin. And I think my answer to that would be, don't, if someone, talk to your lender, obviously, but if you have 10 or 15% down, you should almost always write your offer for 5% down, throwing that extra percentage that you would put down onto the 22 AD, because it's the same thing. The math is just in reverse.
Yeah, and I'll speak to that 100%. This is a big thing I've been preaching to all of my clients who are trying to put 20% down. I'm like, yeah, we're not doing that. We're going to go 5% down. You're going to have the amount that you are willing to go up to as a 22 AD. Why that's important is that is a guarantee. That is so much better than an all cash offer, because guess what? If appraisal comes in low and an all cash offer, they can go back and haggle the price. You are essentially guaranteeing your offer at that point. That speaks so much louder than 20% down or an all cash buyer. And I've beaten out plenty of all cash offers just using this method alone.
So when we ask our favorite lender for a letter of approval for a property, do we need to talk about the 22 AD in advance?
I mean, definitely to make sure that, hey, the funds are available. This is a conversation needs to happen with both the buyer and the lender, and make sure that we're in agreement of where we're willing to go to, make sure they understand it. But yeah, it's something you definitely bring up. Obviously, the 22 AD is just on your guys' end. There's nothing the lender does about it, besides possibly either the lender or the buyer giving you guys a statement showing an evidence of funds, and you guys can attach an EF to it, which goes a long ways to being like, hey, here is the evidence of the funds for you guys. So then that's really going to back it up all the way. Okay.
100%. So yeah, when I have my initial buyer's consultation with somebody who's thinking about buying a home, I try and figure out where they're at, right? If we're talking to an FHA, zero down buyer who needs their closing costs paid for, I'm not going to talk to them about 22 AD. They can't even pay their closing costs. I'm not being rude. I'm just saying that's just fact. They can't pay their closing costs. Of course, they can't pay additional if the down payment comes in low. So we're not even going to talk about it, right? Just like someone comes to you and they're financing and they're like, well, how do I get my offer accepted? And you say, oh, well, you pay cash. It's like, oh, thanks, pal. That's no help, right? So you only want to talk this way with people who have money. So this is really irrelevant for a lot of buyers you work with. But yeah, I mean, if you have the buyers who have 5% down and they're paying their own closing costs, it's a good question to ask them politely and, you know, without stepping on toes, because finances can be tricky. But you say, hey, this is a really competitive market. Let's talk about what we can do to get our offer accepted. So we've already talked about you paying your own closing costs. I'm glad you can do that. That's great. That's a huge help. If you can't pay your own closing costs, well, let me tangent here really quick. Let's talk about what that means. If somebody can't pay their own closing costs, that's almost the opposite of a 22 AD. Okay, so let me explain what I mean by that. If somebody is saying, let's go back to this example. They're offering 800,000, but they need the seller. Let's change this really quick to buy seller. They need the seller to pay 1% of their closing costs, 1% of the costs towards their closing costs. That's $8,000. Okay. Well, if the appraisal comes in low at 775, the seller isn't just selling it for 775, they're selling it for 775 less their seller credit of 8,000, right? So a 22 AD is the opposite of asking a seller to pay your closing costs. I'm going to continue, but Robin has a question.
I was just going to ask, in the instance of like VA, when you're doing 0 down, how the 22 AD, does that?
Yeah, so I'm working with a
normally
buyer right now who is 0 down, finally got him pending 12 offers. Took 12 offers and I finally got him pending. And we were offering 27,000 above appraised value on every single one because that's what he had. But yeah, it's really the same thing, Robin, because he just had to put 0 down instead of 5% down or 3.5% if you're FHA. FHA buyers can also do 22 ADs. A lot of times people are going FHA just because they don't have great credit. Right? They still have money to put down. They just don't have great credit. And so all they have to do is 3.5% down and they still have an extra 5% or whatever, fill in the blank, to offer on the 22 AD. Same thing with a VA. They're putting 0% down because they don't have to put money down, but they still probably have money. Like my buyer, he still had $27,000 to put down. And so that's what we were doing. All of our offers was 0 down, but we'll pay 27 above appraised value. And again, if we had written the offer as a VA buyer with 27,000 down with no 22 AD, it's like, of course, a seller is going to be like, that's not helpful. I don't care how much money you're putting down. One last thing about that too, if you have a buyer who's being stubborn and not understanding it still, they're like, yeah, but I want to put down 25,000 regardless. Okay, you can still put 25,000 down. You can change the terms after the appraisal comes in at value, right? Like you can change it. The seller is not going to, the week of closing, you get the appraisal and it comes in at value and you say, hey, by the way, we're changing our loan to say we're putting 25 down instead of nothing down. The seller is going to say, sure, no problem. You have to get the seller's permission to use, I think it's 22C. I could be wrong on that, but use the right form, but the seller is going to approve it. So anyways, when I'm having that consultation with the buyer, we've already talked about, yeah, good. I'm glad you're paying your own closing costs. We're putting 5% down. Now, I don't know what your financial situation is, and the last thing I want to do is pinch you and have you pay more out of pocket than you have to. But let me paint the picture of where a seller is coming from in this hot market. So homes are oftentimes selling with multiple offers for more than what current comps are showing. So if you're able to put an additional 5, 10, 15, etc. down, if you need to, if the appraisal comes in low, it's so much more attractive. So yeah, Robin, to answer your question, I have that conversation right up front if I think it's a remote possibility. If it's not a possibility, they've already explained they do not have any money, I'm not mentioning it. It's not even relevant. But yes, I absolutely have this conversation up front.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yep.
The other thing too, guys, is it's all about framing the 22 AD as well. And I go about saying, hey, just whatever the 22 AD amount is, say it's $50,000, be like, hey, that $50,000 is spent. It's part of your transaction. So I've done this. And then we had this exact scenario, actually, I'm using a real one. We had the appraisal come in and it was only $20,000 under. I call and I tell the clients and they were actually screaming for joy. They were pumped because they pretty much just got 30 grand back in their pocket that they assumed was gone. So it's how you guys frame and approach this, you guys.
And so again, guys, this spreadsheet, I just want to show you one more time, then we'll wrap up. This spreadsheet is so easy to use. In fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight the sections that you fill in and highlight the sections that you don't touch. Like for example, you don't touch this because this is all formula, right? But just using another example. So we get our offer accepted at 500,000, or you're talking to a client. Normally I show them this spreadsheet. Normally I just made it a week ago when I do this all the time. I show them this spreadsheet ahead of time. I say, okay, let's paint some different pictures. Okay. So I say, so let's say we get our offer accepted at 500,000 and the appraisal comes in at 500,000. So our down payment is only 5% of that. So that's 25,000, and you have an additional 40,000 that you can pay above appraised value. So the appraisal comes in here. Our down payment is this. I did that as a positive, not a negative. Oh no, this should be a 0. I'm sorry, because I'm getting mixed up. Okay, so our loan amount is 475. Closing cost is 2.25. They're not getting any credits from the seller, so their total out of pocket is 36,250. Now we're going to go over here and say, okay, so we're still buying it for 500,000, but let's say it comes in at 480,000. So now the down payment goes down to 24,000 instead of 25,000. I'm going to put this at 20,000. And now their loan amount is 456. Everything else stays the same. And then we're going to do one more example where our purchase price is still 500,000, but the appraisal comes in at 460. And this is -40. Okay, so now we have all of our scenarios. There's really nothing else to fill out except, let's say the taxes would probably be more like 5,000 on this one. And that was a positive. No, that is what I want. I did want a positive, sorry. Okay. So anyways, now I say, so worst case, you're paying 75,000 out of pocket and your payment would be, let's take out these rental marks just for a more generic transaction. And your payment would be 2,632. Formula 2, you pay 55,000 and your payment is 2,725. And Formula 3, you only pay 36,000, which is what we really want, and your payment is 2,818. So what Craig was just saying is he had an example just recently where they were all prepared to do Formula 3, but then they got the news that the appraisal came in at 480, and so they only had to pay 55,000, so they still have 20,000 in their pocket, and their payment went down a little from what they were expecting. Win-win for everybody. And there's something in the chat box, because I'm very observant and I'm following that perfectly. How do you learn what the rate for PMI and property taxes and insurance are? Okay, let's take them one by one. PMI, talk to your lender. Generally, it's around 0.75%.
Yeah, you see about 0.75, 0.8. Yeah.
Yep. It can be more, can be less. Talk to your lender. In general, lenders like to give easy answers. So work with a lender who will give you more than an easy answer. Like say, no, I want to know pretty dang close, like not to the exact fraction, but like pretty close. Same with the closing costs. I know I already said it, but like when somebody says it's closing cost is 3%, I will straight up tell that lender that's not good enough. I need to know exactly what the closing cost is. Like I'm working with a buyer who needs to know exactly how much they can put on 22 AD, and the difference between 3% and 2.25 could mean not getting this home. So like that's not good enough is a totally acceptable answer. And if your lender whines about that, then maybe find a new lender. As far as property taxes, it will tell you on the listing. Just put in whatever just go into the matrix and see what it says on the listing. It will tell you what the yearly property taxes are. And
I would say actually go into the actual county website for the assessor and go get it, because that's not always accurate, you guys.
That's actually a really good point. Thank you for saying that. Yes, absolutely. Actually, I'm going to really quickly show you guys what he means by that. Okay. Zooming in, just find a listing. Let's go. Here we go. Okay, perfect. Here's a listing right here. So it tells you right somewhere here, annual taxes is 2,742, but what Craig is saying, you want to make sure that's correct. So right here where it says tax ID, you click here. And this will pull you to Realist, which is fairly accurate, but even Realist can sometimes be behind. Realist will never be inaccurate, but it will sometimes be outdated. So it's only showing 2020 taxes right here. So then you click right here on tax ID and it'll take you to the county website. And now when you're in the county website, every county website looks a little different. You're gonna click on taxes and values. they should be pretty clear on how to get there. And now you can see in 2021, that's saying total due. Craig, what am I missing here?
Scroll down, hit history, and scroll down, history and receipts.
Thank you.
And so tax year 2021. Oh, they don't really even have it in there. There we go. There it is.
Yeah, 21 taxes are 1365. That's really weird that it went down for them, but they did. So anyways, that I don't know why. That's very odd. Normally taxes go up. That's one thing I can count on in life. But anyways, so now we know that is the exact taxes. So that's how you find out taxes. And then the last part of Robin's question was insurance. I mean, in general, you say talk to your insurance agent, but I mean, I see anywhere from 60 on the low to 100 on the high. I mean, it all depends on the insurance they get. So I did 75 there, but that's, I mean, it all depends on what you want on your insurance, what you want your deductible to be if you ever have a claim on your insurance, et cetera, et cetera. So whatever you want to put that number at. If you want to be conservative, you know, you can write 1,200 here, and that's $100 a month, and insurance will pretty rarely be more than $100 a month.
Yeah, and what I do, guys, for property tax, or not for property taxes, but for insurance, before somebody's found something and obviously they don't even have their insurance in yet, I throw in $85 and go, hey, it's give or take 10, $15. You know,
Yep.
and that's just because I'm like, I don't know who you're going through. I can't give you an accurate answer on that. So here's 85. This is a good middle ground, give or take 10, $15.
Yep. Robin, I see your question. I want to make sure I understand it. Can you clarify?
Yeah, what's up?
Your question of 400K conventional with 35K total. Are you saying they have a total of 35,000 to pay, period?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, got it. So Robin's saying she has a buyer who can only go up to 400,000. Okay, and they are they 5 down conventional, or are they 3.5?
They're 5 down.
Okay, they're 5 down conventional, and let's say the lender has said that their closing cost is going to be about 2.25. So what do we know? We know they have to put 20,000 down and 9,000 down, which is 29,000. In Robin's case, they have an additional. They can go up to 35. So we know that they can put 6,000 down. That's a simple way to do that math. But that's another great question. Do the math in reverse, right?
Yeah.
When you write an offer, what do I need minimum for my down payment and my closing costs? There's no getting away from those. Okay, and then what's my leftover?
And your lender should be able to demand it from your lenders, get a closing cost estimate, or at least have the lender give it to the buyer, and then you can always get it from the buyer. But that will break it down, and you'll see, okay, how much more do we have? Okay.
Yep, love it. And it probably is unrealistic or unfair to call your lender every single time you write an offer and ask for a closing cost breakdown. But if you're writing offers around 400,000, you got one at 400,000, it's going to be pretty close. I can work with that. You know, if I call Craig and he says closing costs are going to be about 2.25, and it ends up being 2.35, that's not the end of the world. When my client says they have $35,000 to spend total for buying the home, like, make sure you ask them, okay, is that 35,000 to get your bank account to zero, or is that giving you a little fluff, right? Make sure you're a little clear on that. If they're like, yeah, I've got roughly 35,000, okay, perfect. So if it goes a little up or a little down, that's not the end of the world.
And you think
Okay.
it's definitely worth it to have that as additional down, even though it's not a great sum?
Honestly, any little bit, any more of a guarantee, that's less that the seller is going to have come out of their pocket when they negotiate down if they have to. So they will take that, and that is better than putting nothing in there.
I've done as little as $4,000.
And then if we know what the estimated closing costs are, would it be smarter to make a fatter earnest money deposit?
Great question. Yeah. So in Robin's example right here, again, don't look at formula 2 or 3 right now. Your client we know at a minimum they're paying about 29,000, period, before we even talk about 22AD. So in order to lose your earnest money, you have to royally mess up, right? Like I tell my clients, like, you're only going to lose your earnest money if I make a mistake, which I won't, or if we're coming up on closing and you change your mind, you get cold feet. All of our contingencies are passed. If your financing falls through because you lose your job, you get your earnest money back. If we do the inspection, we find anything that we don't like, We can back out, you get your earnest money, et cetera, right? So I always encourage my clients to do high earnest money. It just looks stronger. And right now we know it's every little bit counts. So absolutely, Robin, in this case, it's like, I mean, do you have 29,000 in the bank? Why not do a $29,000 earnest money check? I mean, are we backing out of this for any reason other than what we find on the inspection? Or, if our financing falls through? No, we can do it. Like
the other thing with earnest money that I've seen that's been really helpful too, and again, it's going to be where is your buyer's comfort level, but going, hey, upon mutual acceptance, half of the earnest money gets instantly released.
Yeah, that's a really scary one that I was just talking to one of our agents about, because you're right. I've done that, and it's very it's scary and attractive at the same time. So I prefer to say earnest money to be released upon I'm going to say this wrong, but something to the effect of appraisal meeting value, or something like that. Because now we're good. Now it's like, well, now if my financing falls through or anything like that, sure, I lose my earnest money. Whereas in Craig's example, if you release, half the earnest money or whatever, right after mutual acceptance, and then you back out later, technically, if you don't say that earnest money is non-refundable, technically you could still try and get it back. It's not easy. I haven't had to deal with it, but I've heard it can be a long judicial battle. So anyways, be careful if you do that. But yes, if you have a very solid buyer, he's waiving his inspection, he's got very solid financing. Well, again, using my buyers as an example, the 800,000 one, we got firefighter and works at Amazon. They're as secure as it gets with financing. They're not losing their jobs. They're very secure. We were waiving our inspection because of a pre-inspection. In that case, we were waiving our earnest money from day one because they knew they were going to get financing, and it was just subject to the appraisal. That was it. If the appraisal comes in at value or enough with the 22AD to cover it, you get our earnest money, period. And yeah, that is a gangster move. So that's about it, guys. Craig, anything else you want to add about that?
No, I was going to see if anybody had any other questions or anything they wanted to shoot at me, honestly, because I know it's a lot going on. It's been a very quickly and rapidly changing market. And so your strategies do have to change up a bit. And so always talk over this stuff with a lender, you guys, even if it's not, you guys can use me. Even if your buyers aren't going through me, I don't care. I'll talk over these strategies with you guys. You can present them. Okay. But if anybody has anything, like, now's the time. I'm here. I'm yours.
Awesome. Appreciate it. All right, guys, as always, if you have any questions about this, don't hesitate to ask. I'll send this super awesome calculator to everybody so they can use it. I'll try and make it a little more user-friendly. But again, just if you're ever using a spreadsheet like this, only edit the portions that are not formulas, right? So you wouldn't change this number here where it's a formula. You would just change this number, right?
You started or stopped sharing your screen, but I think we got the gist.
How do you unpat yourself on the back? How do you?
I was just going to say that. That's so funny.
Tuesday is Monday Junior, so it's allowed.
That's funny. Anyways, yeah, if you don't use spreadsheets often, yeah, you just don't change the formulas, just change the hard numbers. But and yeah, if you ever want me to, if you ever want to like role play with me, you're like, hey, I'm going to explain this to somebody. Can I kind of explain it to you as if you're my buyer? I'd love to do that. So anyways. Yeah,
same thing with me, guys. So even if you need Isaac and I in the same room, we can deal with both of us together at the same time. Awesome. We're here to do that. It's a brave few of you, though, I hope. I wish that upon anybody.
All right,
I just want to give Craig Benson a shout out really fast. I have a client using Craig, and he has been super great about sending closing cost estimates and pre-approval letters same day, even on weekends. It's amazing.
Yeah, for sure. Love Craig.
I don't know what work-life balance is, guys. So
neither
what
do
are weekends?
we.
What are days off? But no, I mean, like your guys' lenders should be doing that stuff for you. If they're not, ask them to start doing it. And again, if you guys need anything whatsoever, just reach out to me. Even if I'm not helping your clients, I don't care. Shoot a scenario at me. I'll help you explain it through and everything like that, guys.
Awesome.